All right, good morning, traders. Today is May 27th, 2025. My name is John Carignan. I am the lead instructor here at the BYOB Trading Room. Thank you for being here. How I plan to trade SPY today. Well, we'll get to that in a few minutes. Let's go ahead and get the morning summary out of the way. First, we'll start off with good morning and thank you everybody out there in podcast land, digital land, cyberland. Thank you for your subscriptions. Thank you for following me. Thank you for the thumbs up and the kind words. Appreciate that. Hey, good morning, Julie. My SPY pivot this morning is 508.65. We are well above that, okay? Excuse me. Above it, I'm a bull. Below it, I'm a bear. All of the Fab Five still in daily uptrends. Nobody broke the 17 yet. FNGB, QQQ made lower lows, lower highs. Actually, they all made lower lows and lower highs on Friday. Okay, QQQ and FNGB closed underneath bullish traps, but over their 17 EMAs. Diamond Dow IWM made lower lows and lower highs, closing below their traps, below their 17 EMAs. SPY made a lower low and a lower high, closing below a bearish cross, but above the 17 EMA. SPY closed with a 2-hour downtrend and a 10-minute downtrend. Gold still in a daily downtrend, but hanging out up there in quadrant 4. All right, gold made a higher low and a higher high, closing over a bullish trap over the 17 EMA. Silver in an uptrend, made a higher high and a higher low, closing inside a bullish trap over the 17 EMA. USO in a downtrend, made a higher high and a higher low, closing under a bullish cross over the 17 EMA. UNG also in a daily downtrend. Energy's been down, made a higher high and a higher low, closing inside a bearish trap under the 17. US dollar still in a downtrend. We like that. Closed near the 99.01 area. It's under a buck now. SPY max pain for today is 582 with a put to call ratio of about 1 put to each call that expires. And those are for the options that expire today at 4:15. All right. Let's go take a look at some charts. All right, let's start off with SPY. Let's pull it up here on the game plan one. Let's pull it up on the 10-minute, see what's going on. Let's pick up a clean one. All right, 10-minute coming into the close. We're way above that. You can see here we are in the pre-market. Had a 10-minute downtrend. Normally I'd be looking for a continuation to that downtrend. But since we gapped way up, I'm probably looking for a pullback to the 50-yard line. So let's just put we'll do that in just a minute. We'll put the quad lines in there and see how far we are away, and we'll find the midpoint between where the high was and where the low is, and we'll probably put that as a place for price to J-hook out of there. All right, so anyways, close with a 10-minute downtrend. Coming into the close, failed to fill the gap. Obviously, they're gapping up higher this morning. I don't know what the news is. We'll find out later in the day. 2-hour still in a downtrend. That may change with this gap up. All right, on the daily chart, we had a lower high and a lower low, closing under, you can see this bearish cross. The 3 EMA crosses underneath the 8 there. So closing underneath a bearish cross, but above see the green dots, above the green dots, that's the rising 17 EMA right there. So, but above the green dots, still in an uptrend, okay? So we pop down here below the 17. That's the new target now, okay? So that's as price V bottoms off of that 17. If it should come back through and make a lower low, that would put SPY into a downtrend, all right? So we'll see what happens here, okay? So on the daily chart, we're still in an uptrend. On the 2-day chart, we still haven't broke this high, which is the only high over the 17. So we still, right now, still in a daily downtrend because we haven't made that higher high. On the 3-day chart, still haven't made that higher high, still in a downtrend. On the weekly chart, same deal, still haven't made that higher high, which is this one over the 17, so we're still in a downtrend. On the monthly chart, we are still well and alive in a monthly uptrend right there. So daily's in an uptrend, monthly's in an uptrend, but these three in between are in a downtrend. But let me just say, price is not moving down. Well, it has the last 4 days, but all in all, for the most part, price has been moving up. All right, so 3-day price moving up. You can see weekly price moving up. All right, so it's not moving down. Still in a downtrend though, okay? It's just a label, so we'll see where it goes. When it comes to the quad lines, let's see where we are here with the daily chart, okay? So we're still in the upper third, so that's bullish. All right, so we're still in the upper third. Still got higher lows and higher highs, so the daily chart's still in an uptrend. Price action still over this uptrend line. We're gapping up this morning. All right, let's take a look at it with the pre-market on. And what do we got here? Okay, so let's just find a cleaner chart. Okay, let's just put in the quad lines and see what we come up with. Okay, so price, all right, from this pullback is up over the midpoint. So I would expect price to probably come down here and probably spike this area pretty hard right here at the midpoint. I'd expect a pullback to come back to 585, and I would look for price action to probably spike this area, maybe down into 584.50, and then I would look for it to J-hook out of there. Okay, that's what I would be expecting this morning. We'll see what happens. They are gapped up and they're holding this higher ground for the most part. Again, I'll be looking to play 10-minute uptrends over VWAP, and I'll be using the VWAP and the 10-minute uptrends from the pre-market chart, not from the other chart down there. So I'll be looking for 10-minute uptrends from the pre-market chart because they will start sooner than the regular chart, because you can see as we gap up from here, all right, it'll be huge and all of the moving averages will be out of whack, and so will the VWAP. So I'll be looking at it with the pre-market on. I'll be looking to play 10-minute uptrends, all right, that bounce off of probably this midpoint right here, maybe even 584. All right, I'd be looking for a J-hook off of 584 and probably off of 585.50 right there. So anywhere between 585.50 and 584, I'll be looking for that 10-minute uptrend to start to form. It may start out as a 3-minute uptrend, transition into a 5, and then eventually into a 10. That's what I'm looking for. I guess we're now starting our consolidation pattern now, okay? So price has come all the way from this bottom low, come up there. So now you can see we've got a $15 range, well, maybe a little bit more, maybe a $20 range. Okay, so we got 595 all the way down to 575. Now, I don't think 595 will be the top side of the range. I think it will be closer to probably this upper third, maybe like 590. All right, and I think or it may even be right here, 588. See those, all those tails that come down. All right, if we get up into those tails, I'll be looking for it to attack this breakdown candle high right there. Okay, if we get up into all of these erratic tails that were like misprints, but maybe they weren't, I guess they're still there, so I'll be looking to attack this breakdown candle high. That would be my target for today. For the high of day would be 592.57 right there. That's going to be my target for high of day for today. 592.57. All right, so I'll be looking for that. Hopefully they get up there. We'll see what happens. Okay, we'll see what happens. So you can see we got our consolidation. We move up, pull back. Now we're headed back up. Set the top side of the range. Is it going to be 592.57? Is it going to be just 588? 588.90? Will that be the top? We'll find out soon. All right, sometime today, and we'll look for that consolidation pattern that we normally watch to start to form. It's already starting, and we'll look for that to manifest and play out as normal. So there's the 10-minute chart. Okay, again, I'm looking for a pullback right around anywhere between 585.50 all the way back to 584. All right, looking for a J hook out of there and come back up here and retest these overnight or pre-market highs up here. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. All right, maybe even get up a little higher. All right, probably take a couple tests before they start to climb up this breakdown candle high. We'll see what happens. All right, so there's the 10-minute chart on SPY. There's the plan this morning. We're looking for a 10-minute uptrend. We're looking for it to probably manifest around 584, maybe anywhere between 584 and 585. All right, and looking for that to manifest, and we trade that up to an area, hopefully up right back up to the overnight highs first. That would be my first target, and eventually after a couple tries, I think we're coming all the way up here to 592.65. I think that may be the top side of the consolidation pattern. We'll see what happens. All right, we'll see what happens. So there's the 10-minute. Let's take a look at the game plan. Game plan is going to be irrelevant with this huge gap that we have this morning. But what's not relevant is 3 days till expiration Friday options. All right, I'm still be looking to trade those. 10 days till expiration Friday options. I'll still be looking to trade those. I'll be looking for options that are $5 to $15 out of the money. Again, I like 10-minute uptrends over VWAP. Again, I'm going to have the pre-market 10-minute uptrends on. Same as the same as I like 10-minute downtrends under VWAP. Again, I will be having the pre-market on there so I can actually enter into those 10-minute uptrends a lot sooner than I could if I left the pre-market activity off. Okay, so I'll be looking at that. Again, this is going to be irrelevant. The SPY pivot's 578.80. All right, I don't know what I had. Is that right? That's right. That's right. Some reason the other one's wrong. All right, I got to fix that. All right, so SPY pivot 578.80. Above it, I'm a bull. Below it, I'm a bear. Red erases green underneath, 577.50. Okay, green erases red over 581.50. You can see we're all the way up here, 587.50. We're nowhere near 581.50. So that makes all of this almost irrelevant unless, of course, they decide to do a $7 gap fill. All right, which I don't see really happening. Actually, that'll be a $10 gap fill from where we are right now, almost. All right, that'd be a $10 drop into gap fill. Again, I do like the 3 days till 3 days till expiration Friday options and the 10 days till expiration Friday options. I even holding. Let me just say, I'm holding some a little longer term because I do like that monthly bullish candle. I will. So what I have this morning is I got 357 610 calls. All right, that's a lot of calls, but think about it. They're only 37 cents each. All right, for each share in that call. All right, so I got 357 of those. Now, gapping way up like this, that'll probably produce about $10,000 in profits, maybe even more, maybe even who knows, anywhere between $5,000 and $10,000 profits with this $10 gap up. That will probably get for those 357 profits that I bought real cheap. Okay, now I do have some 17 days till expiration All right, 620 options. I got some 24 days till expiration, 625 calls. And the other one was 7 days till expiration, 620 calls. All right, and I got one, looks like I got 6 puts, 570 puts. All right, that were in the money. I never took profit. We'll see what happens. All right, I got some CGC calls that are in the money. Those are looking good. Got some SIGA calls that are not in the money. Actually, they are in the money. It's just that the spread is so wide, it's making it irrelevant right there on those SIGA calls right there. So you can see my plan this morning is going to be to take some profit on all those calls and reload at a better price when possible. All right, so that's going to be my game plan this morning, okay? Looking for that 10-minute uptrend. All right, let's take a look at QQQ. All right, QQQ on the daily chart. Okay, just like everybody, they all got, yeah, you know, right here. They all got lower lows and lower highs. They all, this QQQ closed underneath the trap, over the rising 17, over the all-time high anchored VWAP, over the uptrend line, up here in quadrant 4, that's bullish and in an uptrend. FN, I can feel my voice going again. FNGB, same deal, lower high, lower low, closing over, under the trap, but over the 17, over the all-time high anchored VWAP, over the uptrend line. Okay, no longer in the upper third, so that's just neutral. Higher lows and higher highs, that's still an uptrend. Okay, SPY, we'll revisit it one more time. Okay, lower high, lower low, closing under a bearish cross, but over the 17, over the uptrend line, over the all-time high anchored VWAP, those are the pink lines. Okay, up here in quadrant 4, that's bullish and in an uptrend. Let's take a look at IWM. IWM lower high, lower low, closing. All right, it's closing under a bearish trap. See, the 3 is underneath the 8. Under the 17 EMA. Okay, under the all-time high anchored VWAP. It's a pink line right here. Sorry. Over the uptrend line right here. Not in the lower third, definitely not in the upper third, so it's just neutral. Okay, you can see IWM, which represents a big part of the market. That's the Russell 2000. That means it's got probably about 2,000 securities in it, give or take. All right, and then you've got FNGB, which represents all of, let's just say 10 of the most heavily weighted stocks, securities in the indexes, all right? And that's also in neutral land. Okay, we prefer both of those to be bullish, but they're not. The good news is they're still in uptrends, all right? So IWM neutral, still in an uptrend. Okay, let's take a look at Diamond Dow. Here we are with Diamond Dow again, just like everybody got a lower high and a lower low. Okay, closing over the pink line. Notice the body is green, so that means it closed over, and it's above the pink line, so that closed over the pink line. Okay, so over the all-time high anchored VWAP, over the, see the gold line, over the uptrend line, over the midpoint, but not in the upper third. Okay, that would be up here, over 422. Okay, not in the lower third. All right, that would be under 394.5. All right, so it's just neutral. All right, so Diamond Dow neutral, FNGB neutral, and IWM neutral. All of the ones, pretty much the main 3 that we would really like to see bullish, but they're not quite yet. Okay, so we'll see what happens here. Again, pullbacks are healthy. All right, be nice to see a pullback. All right, pullbacks are healthy. We don't really like them all the time, but let me just say, they present opportunity. Okay, just think of this not as Oh, it's going down again. Okay, think of this as opportunity, and you got to say to yourself, oh gee, I hope it goes lower, you know, because that's going to give you a better cost basis. Okay, we're gapping up now this morning, which doesn't help us on that cost basis. But for those of us that were in tune to Friday's morning monologue or presentation, you would have remembered that this is opportunity, because I mentioned that on Friday, either Friday night or at least Friday morning, that these pullbacks that we're getting, these are awesome because this is opportunity, because we're in an uptrend. Okay, so there's timing down. Let's look at the technicals. T2122. All right, so you can see price action digging its way out of, this is Friday's price action, digging its way out of the sell zone, making little higher lows and higher highs inside the seller's chop zone, and finally camping out up here in the buyer's chop zone over the midpoint. Nicely done on T2122. T2123. Okay, it's a 15-minute representation. We had a bearish gap down that got filled by the bulls. Okay, that's exciting. Whenever I see bearish gaps getting filled by the bulls, that is a bullish environment. We have one more bearish gap that still has not been filled by the bulls, and I got to bet that it's probably going to get filled today, right there. Okay, so looking like that bearish gap down from the day before, that would have been Thursday, is going to get filled today. So whenever you see bearish gaps getting filled by bulls, all right, that's a bullish environment. Price action up over this 200 SMA, that is a bullish environment. Price action above a downtrend line. See how we broke this downtrend line? That is a bullish environment. Price action making higher lows and higher highs is also a bullish environment. And price action consolidating over prior consolidation is a bullish environment. Right now, we don't quite have the consolidation in there. You can see we're consolidating under prior consolidation. So we'll see what they do today. If they hold the higher ground, that's a bullish clue. Okay? If they give it up, that's not a bullish clue, that's a bearish clue. It's actually a neutral clue if they move up and give it up. Okay? That's what we don't want to see, is move up. See how they moved up and then they gave it up. All right, so we're moving up. The question is, are we going to do the same thing again, or can we hold the higher ground? Excuse me. All right, so there's T2123. Okay, that we'll be looking at the way in which price action performs. Okay, we'll be looking for characteristics. All right, they gap up. Are they going to fill the gap? The bear's going to fill the gap right away. Okay, because that would be a bearish clue. All right, if they bears come in and just fill the gap right away, that would be a really bearish clue. If they don't fill it till the end of day, it's kind of leaning a little bit more bullish. But I don't want to see the bulls give up the higher ground. But it may happen. We'll see what happens. T2123. Let's take a look at the 3-bar chart. 3-bar chart, 3 more green candle bars. Again, up over the downtrend line, up over the 200 SMA. The only thing we don't have is the daily chart needs to take out this high right over here, all right, in order for price action to be in an uptrend on the daily time frame. So the 15-minute, we got a nice uptrend on T2123. On the 3-bar, we got a nice uptrend. We had to take out that high, and we did it. And we filled a whole bunch of bearish gaps. Look at that big bearish gap. We even made a nice bullish gap right there. All right, so it's possible that we do get a pullback into this area, all right, eventually after in the probably in the middle leg of that consolidation. They probably spike down here and put down, fill this bearish gap or this bullish gap right there. All right, we'll look for that to possibly happen. We'll see. Right now, price action is moving up. Nice bull flag hanging out up there. We'll see. T2123 3 bar. FNGB. All right, look at this. Moving up, holding that higher ground. Even gapping up this morning. Look at that. Okay, that is a bullish environment. Okay, so we're looking at a lot of bullish environments today. All right, and so I would be looking for 10-minute uptrends to probably work. We'll see what happens. All right, we're looking at a bullish environment. I'm expecting 10-minute uptrends to take us far. When they start, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I would expect a lot of profit taking in the morning. All right, so I do expect the bears to make some yardage. All right, like maybe back to 585, maybe back to 584.50 or something like that. Okay, I am expecting the bears to make some yardage. All right, but I am looking for the bulls to put up a stand somewhere. All right, and get that thing J-hooked around and start making some new highs. We'll see what happens. All right, this is FNGB holding the higher ground. That's bullish. Still got some bullish gaps that haven't been filled by bears. We got one here, hasn't been filled by the bears. We got one here that hasn't been filled by the bears. We got one here that hasn't been filled by the bears. All right, got a whole bunch of, I got quite a few bullish gaps that still have not been filled by the bears. All right, and then on top of all that, I mean, this is the one ETN. This is the one with the 10 securities in it that are so heavily weighted inside the QQQ and the SPY that it doesn't matter what the other ones are doing sometimes. But when these 10 move as a pack, let me just say, they will jerk the dog. All right, this is the leash that jerks the dog into which direction they want to go. And they are holding the higher ground. That is a very bullish sign right there. That is a very bullish environment. All right, so there's FNGB on the 15-minute with many bullish gaps that have not been filled. All right, so there's FNGB. All right, let's go take a look at a few other sectors. We'll start off with energy. All right, so let me move this over and pull up a daily chart of the XLE. Prepare to be disappointed. All right, a little higher low, looking like an inside day. Is it an inside day? I can't tell. High is 82.19. High is 82.19. All right, so we got equal highs and a higher low. All right, closing under a bearish trap. Nothing impressive there. Closing under the 17, nothing impressive there. Closing underneath, excuse me again, downtrend line 1, downtrend line 2, and the all-time high anchored VWAP and the midpoint in the lower third, okay, that's bearish. All right, I'm just going to say we're in an uptrend because there's a high and we made a higher high. All right, so we're in an uptrend, not a very strong uptrend, but nonetheless, it is an uptrend, but we're still in the lower third. All right, so that's bearish. All right, you're down here in the lower third. You keep going up and you give it up. That's, you give it up and more. That's bearish. All right, so they're down here. Again, they move up, they give it up and more. That makes them bearish. So this is right there. They're bearish. They're in an uptrend. All right, but they haven't done anything impressive other than make that higher high right there. Again, we like to see them make those higher highs and hold the higher ground. I don't mind a brief pullback, to a midpoint, but then get back up there. Okay, so there's XLE. Let's take a look at USO. And you'll see why the XLE is struggling, because USO has yet to make a higher high. They're still in a downtrend. They're still in the lower third, So that's bearish, and they're still in a downtrend. They're underneath this 3-year high anchored VWAP. That's a post-COVID high. You can see they're down here in the lower third. So nothing impressive there. So they're not getting much help from USO. UNG also in a downtrend, yet to make a higher high. There's a low. They made a lower low. That puts them in a downtrend. Now they got to make a higher high. They were supposed to take out this high up here. They never did it. Instead, they produced a lower high again. Excuse me. Price action for Friday is a higher high and a higher low, closing inside a bearish trap. Nothing impressive there. Closing underneath the 17. Nothing impressive there. Closing underneath the downtrend line. Nothing impressive there. Closing underneath the midpoint. Nothing impressive there. Okay? They do have a couple of nice things going for them. They're over this really low bar, which is 12-month high anchored VWAP. All right? They're above that. And they're not in the lower third. But they're still in a downtrend, and they're in the neutral zone. All right? So not much help from UNGs. Take a look at precious metals. GLD, higher low, higher high, closing over the trap, over the 17, over the all-time high anchored VWAP up here in quadrant 4. That's bullish. All of that is bullish. But they are still in a downtrend because they failed to make a higher high. So there's GLD on the daily chart. That's bullish up there. Okay, silver, same deal. Up there in quadrant 4, that's bullish. Breaking the downtrend line. Over this 6-month high anchored VWAP, that's bullish. Closing over the trap, over the 17. All of that is bullish. Okay, here's a high. They made a higher high. That's an uptrend. Okay, so that's bullish as well. Up here in quadrant 4, also bullish. So there's silver, looking good. All right, let's take a look at SMH. Okay, you can see SMH was up here in the bullish area in the upper third. They lost it. Price action, lower high, lower low. Closing over all-time high anchored VWAP over the downtrend line, but is in the neutral zone, making higher lows and higher highs. Still an uptrend, but just neutral. All right, knocking on the door, but still neutral. XLK. XLK in the upper quadrant, that's bullish. Over the uptrend line, that's bullish. Over the all-time high anchored VWAP, that's bullish. In an uptrend, higher low, higher high, that's bullish. Do I think this thing needs to cool off some more? Yes, I do. I think it needs to cool off for another week or so. All right, but it is bullish up here and looking good and looking strong. That's XLK. XLF. I'm sorry. Higher low, excuse me, lower high, lower low, closing up in quadrant 4, that's bullish. All right, closing over the all-time high anchored VWAP, that's bullish. Up here in the upper third, that's bullish. In an uptrend, higher low, higher high, that's bullish. All right, closing underneath the trap, that's not so bullish. Closing underneath the 17, not so bullish. Still in an uptrend, still bullish up here in the upper third. There's XLF, little gap up this morning, nice. Okay, let's take a look at IYT. IYT, lower high, lower low. Everybody got a lower high and a lower low. This one closed under a bearish trap. Closed, I'm just going to call it over the 17 EMA. Closed under the all-time high anchored VWAP, or this 6-month, all-time high anchored VWAP. Over the uptrend line. Over the midpoint. Okay, but still neutral. It's in an uptrend because it made a higher low and a higher high. All right, but still neutral right through here. Reason it's neutral, it's not in the upper third, it's not in the lower third. So just neutral and in an uptrend right now, okay? Just having some difficulty holding the higher ground. There's IYT. All right, let's go take a look at our economic package. And let's take a look at the dollar first, if I can find that. Here's the dollar closing yesterday night, 99.01. Okay, still in a downtrend. Okay, see, making lower highs. There's a high, made a lower high and a lower low. Another lower high and a lower low. Another lower high, yeah, and a lower low. Another lower high and a lower low. And we broke major support, which now becomes minor resistance, which was tested and held in there. All right, so there's the dollar in a downtrend still. We like that. SPY max pain for today is 582 with one put to one call. All right, for the SPY options that expired today at 4:15. Let's take a look at two of our other things. We'll take a look at our earnings calendar. And there's our earnings calendar. And what do we have on deck for Tuesday? Well, let's just see what we missed on Monday. You can see nothing really market moving. All right, maybe some familiar names, but nothing really market moving. What do we got here? PDD Holdings, 170 billion. They're going to report this morning. All right, so nothing like a Google or a Meta, but probably going to help out their sector, PDD Holdings. Not sure what they sell. NVIDIA, all right, here's a main event right here. $3.2 trillion. All right, they're going to report tomorrow night. That's a main event right there. NVIDIA is going to report $3.2 trillion. Salesforce, they're going to be overshadowed by whatever happens to NVIDIA. $282 billion. They're going to report tomorrow night. And then we've got Synopsys, $77 billion. Thank you, Alan, for sharing those. On Thursday, we got Cisco, 451 billion. They're going to report Thursday night. Royal Bank of Canada, 181 billion. Thursday morning. Okay, Cisco is Thursday evening. Royal Bank of Canada is Thursday evening. Dell Technologies, 78 billion. They're going to report Thursday evening. On Friday, Coca-Cola. Again, some more familiar names. Shoe Carnival. Coca-Cola Euro Pacific. All right, some more familiar names, but nothing that's going to wreck the market right there. Okay, this is capable of wrecking the market. NVIDIA. All right, that's the main event. Let's take a look at the economic calendar. Make sure I get the right one here. All right, for this morning, what do we got? We got durable goods comes out at 8:30. Thank you. Case-Shiller Home Price Index at 9. FHFA Home Price Index at 9. Consumer Confidence at 10. And that's it for the rest of the day there. Tomorrow we got OPEC meeting. Qashqai MBA mortgage applications at 7. And FOMC minutes at 2. That'll be the main event there. All right, FOMC minutes at 2. Thursday, I don't know what Mr. Powell said this weekend. Maybe that's why the market's gapping up. All right, Thursday, another main event, GDP, 8:30. I don't expect much out of GDP. All right, we'll see what happens, though. GDP, Thursday morning, 8:30. Jobless claims, 8:30. GDP might even be good. I got to tell you, I kind of got that itchy palm that's kind of just saying GDP might be good. We'll see what happens, but we've had a low dollar for a while now. So GDP could be getting good, and I don't think we've had any real tariffs that have been on yet. Okay, we'll see. I'm not sure if we have any tariffs on yet, any new tariffs. So GDP might be good ahead of those tariffs. We'll see what happens. GDP 8:30 Thursday. Jobless claims 8:30. Pending home sales 10. Gas report at 10:30. All right, and petroleum report, 12 o'clock. That's different. All right. And then we got international trading goods at 8:30 on Friday. Personal income and outlays, 8:30 on Friday. What else we got? Retail inventories, 8:30 on Friday. Wholesale inventories, 8:30 on Friday. Chicago PMI, 9:45 on Friday. Consumer sentiment, 10 o'clock on Friday. And then we got a rig count at 1, a couple of Fed speakers, and then that's it. So main event's going to be FOMC at 2, again, along with NVIDIA earnings after the close on Wednesday. And then bright and early the next morning, we're going to get GDP at 8:30. All right, let me just say, if NVIDIA earnings are good and GDP is good, you could be looking at new all-time highs. I'm talking about 620. I'm talking about 650. All right, if NVIDIA earnings are good and GDP is good, you might see a rocket ride up to 650. All right, just be prepared for that. All right, we'll see what happens though. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. All right, so Dow futures rally 50 points after. Oh, look at that. Trump delayed the European Union tariff. Okay, what did I say? Anything can happen. I said this like Thursday night or Friday night. I said he could probably delay the tariff and we could be back up at 590. And here we are at 588.90. The highs are the pre-market highs this morning. You know, like I said, anything can happen, all right? So, thanks, Alan. Durable goods, let's just take a peek at those. Well, durable goods are in line. I don't see anything there except for core capital goods, which is out of line. Other than that, everything is in line. All right, that's it for me for this morning, traders. Let me get this rendered for everybody out there in digital land. If you got any questions, pop them in there. I'll be happy to help you with them. Other than that, you heard the plan for this morning. All right, we're going to watch that SPY. We're going to watch that 10-minute pre-market. And we're going to trade that 10-minute pre-market, looking for 10-minute downtrends. All right, again, I'm expecting a pullback to 585, maybe even 584, and J-hook out of there. All right, that's what I'm expecting. We'll see what happens. They could go all the way lower to gap fill. We'll see what happens. Looking for a high today of 592. All right, after this pullback. Again, there's going to be some profit taking early in the morning. I expect that. All right, so we'll see what happens. All right, I'll see you guys in about 25 minutes.